and I know. So, why did you decide to study what you studied at university, and what was the thinking that led up to that? Because one of the reasons we do this podcast is to, try and understand how your thinking has evolved over time, right? So, I mean,
Right.
why the choice to study what you studied, and why did you choose that particular city that you eventually decided
Yeah.
to settle down in?
Mm, okay. So I think never wanted to continue studying in Bahrain, and this might sound funny, or it might sound very snobbish, but this was what I had heard, that only failures stay back. I mean, seriously, that's something that I kept hearing, and I said, "Oh my God, but I'm not a failure," you know, like. It was really weird, Abhishek. Like if I think about 11th and 12th, right, the grade, even choosing the commerce stream, it was like a hierarchy, right? So there was science, then there's commerce, and then there's arts. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, at least I'm not in arts. Can you believe it? Like somebody who loves arts so much, I said, okay, at least I'm not among them, because the kind of things that people spoke about them, it was just so bad. They said that, oh, those are all failures just because they couldn't make it into the other stream. They were, the lesser intellectual people. It was really bad. Okay, so that was 11th and 12th. And after that, it felt like a natural progression because I'd chosen commerce in 11th and 12th. I definitely knew I wouldn't want to do science. I liked biology. That's something I loved out of all the three streams. Physics and chemistry, I could never ever get the concepts right. And I was very curious about how others learned. So we had some family friends who took science, and I think I asked one of them, how do you memorize, or not how do you memorize, how do you understand chemistry equations? Because, they were really, really long equations or whatever. And he said, oh, I just turn it into a song. And I found that so creative, like I never thought of that. Like, I mean, he definitely had an inclination towards science, but then he also said that, see, you can't learn in a robotic manner, right? You will eventually saturate. So then he used to turn it into a song. But then I knew that I would never uh, manage science. So I didn't want to just take it for the sake of it and then, drop out and all of that. Commerce is something I thought is okay. It's fine. It's definitely way better than taking humanities. So, gosh, it was so funny. Anyway, so after I took that, I did my BCom because it was a natural progression, like I said. But and how I chose Bangalore, I think it just happened because Bombay didn't seem to have a very safe kind of uh, residence for women. Something, when we spoke to a lot of cousins and all of that, they said that, okay, we might have paying guest accommodations, but there are not many hostels for girls. So my parents, said, because they're sending me for the first time to a different country, they said, okay, might as well you go to a place which has a good hostel facility for girls. So then, when we spoke to cousins, they said, why not Bangalore? Bangalore is pretty much like Bombay, good, good education wise. I mean, it's really good and all of that. So it just happened. I got admission in Mount Carmel, but because of the fact that it was not just a commerce college, right? It had science, arts, and all of that. I was able to speak to other people who were very much into the arts, right? So there were students whose parents were journalists. They were, much into this, like from a very long time, and it was really fascinating. I loved the contests. There were lots of contests. So I think earlier, I got, like in school, I did not participate in anything, and now I got out of my shell. I said, if I don't do it now, when? When will I? So even though I took commerce, I will never forget my English teachers. And they tell me that they will never forget me. The reason is because, they told me that the students that they had in their English classes, right? I mean, the humanities courses, apparently they said, some of them already knew everything. So it's kind of like, the classic, you can always read on your own, you can always understand on your own, you don't need someone to teach you. So it was kind of like they didn't feel appreciated in those classes. And I would just go and harass them all the time. After class, I would be standing outside in the teacher's room, all of that, and I don't know, I was just shameless. I was so hungry to understand, what a piece meant, like an English text meant. And like you said, in school, which subjects I loved English. I always loved English. That's something I realized I loved, but I couldn't, I didn't have the tools to express that love for it, and mainly because I didn't know what I could do with English in the future. That was the main thing. because I know that my parents were very hardworking. They told me that you need a job to sustain yourself, and I knew that English kind of doesn't translate to those kind of opportunities. So yeah, but I think it was in college where I really, really started writing. Started writing and gaining feedback. So I kept hounding my teachers for feedback, and it was lovely. I would never exchange those years for anything else. It was really, really interesting. Yes, there were times where I thought, okay, why, I should have probably studied literature, but then I obviously wouldn't have had the path that I've had so far. So it would have been very different. Yeah.
Oh and I think that what I've noticed about you, Michelle, is you're extremely curious, right? And I think that is something that defines your personality. You always want to know more about the world. You want to, and I think even then that was very prevalent in your demeanor. And so once you were done with your Bachelor of Commerce course, which is a course in the commerce field, so what did you do right after that, and how did you eventually end up taking up that next degree?
Oh, I actually took a gap year, just like you.
Okay.
But when I read your interesting, I mean, experiences throughout your gap year, I mean, I felt like, oh my god, I wasted my time. So I didn't really do anything. One thing was I wanted a relaxed year actually. So the thing is, because I was away from home, and I wasn't eating well, the hostel food sucked, as you can expect. So I wanted to take this relaxing year and figure out what I want to do next. So my parents were very supportive. They are the ones actually who suggested a gap year, and they said, just chill, just relax, see what you want to do. So I did a couple of internships in HR, because that's something I realized that, again, in BCom, there are, like, accounts, there's business, there's a lot. I liked HR out of all. First, because it's a theory subject. I prefer theory subjects, and I realized that that's something I like. I like talking to people. I like knowing about people. So yeah, so then in my gap year, I did a little bit of writing as well. I think I did a lot of writing. Yeah, actually. So it was 2012. That was the time when I figured out the whole world of literary magazines. So honestly, if literary magazines weren't around, I don't know if I'd been writing today, because I honestly didn't have any kind of guidance, right? Like, otherwise someone tells you, okay, this is how you should write, this is where you should submit, and all of that kind of. So it's kind of like figuring out the ABC. So I would spend hours reading literary magazines, and then I would look for volunteer positions, right? Like editorial positions. And also, what I figured was, I probably will never do a course. I can maybe learn on the job. That's something I was very keen on doing.